Welcome to everybody. We're so happy to see you all here. My name's Samantha Sutherland. I'm hosting today's webinar. I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction to Work 180, to our panel members and our conversation topic. So Work 180, let me introduce us first. So Work 180 is on a mission to empower every woman to choose a workplace where they can thrive. We're an advocate for working women and provide job applicants with a directory of endorsed employers who support diversity, inclusion, and equality. And on our website, we share information around pay equity, flexible working, paid parental leave, and a range of other really important criteria. All of Work 180's endorsed employers go through a pre-screening process to make sure they meet all our criteria. And this is a really exciting time for workplace equality. We are so passionate about it and we are just getting started. As I said at the beginning, I'm Samantha Sutherland. I'm the moderator for today's conversation, and I also host Work 180's podcast, Equality Talks. So if you're looking for some entertainment as your commute starts back up, if you're heading back into work or while you're at home, check out Equality Talks on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. So today, our webinar conversation is managing redundancy, and I'm so excited to bring you two amazing career coach experts. So first we have Nicki Smith. Nikki, if you can give us a wave. Nikki is a registered psychologist with a focus on performance and career coaching, including redundancy and career change. She worked as a redundancy coach for Directioneering and Penner in the UK during the GFC. Nikki uses strengths coaching to help corporate workers figure out what's next, create work that has more freedom and flexibility, and get noticed and tap into the hidden job market after being made redundant. So welcome, Nikki. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Sam.
We also have Sandy Hutchison. Sandy's a career transition specialist and the CEO and founder of Career Money Life, a digital career transition platform containing everything you need to figure out your career next step and how to make it happen. They offer advice, tools, resources, and access to careers coaches, LinkedIn specialists, resume writers, and much more. Prior to founding Career Money Life, Sandy was the HR Senior Executive Director for MMC Asia Pacific and the HR Consulting Partner at Mercer. So hi, Sandy. Welcome to you as well. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sam. Good to be here.
So as I said, we've got some pre-prepared questions for the panelists, and then we're going to open the floor to questions. Feel free to type questions into the chat box as we go, and we'll unmute people to ask their questions as well when we are in question time at the end. Like I said, if you do want to turn on your video, welcome to. We love to see your beautiful faces while we're having the webinar. So we'll jump right in. So Nikki, I'm going to start with you. You specialize in career transition and helping people following redundancy. What are you seeing in the job market in Australia right now?
Okay. Hey, everyone. We would love to see your faces. Are we going to see some more faces? Jane, Jocelyn, Zach, Espy, Sarah, Claudia, Claire.
Oh, there's more faces coming up. Excellent, Kelly.
Eva, Claire, Christina. Show us your faces. We'd love to see them. Great question, Sam. So really want to share the message today that if you have been stood down or made redundant, you are in very good company. So I'm speaking to on average 10 people a week who are experiencing this and who are all very well qualified and we're doing a great job, before this. So I almost went to talk statistics, but then I realized I believe in the end statistics aren't very helpful. They can demotivate you. And at the end of the day, it's about how many roles do you personally need? And that's one. So the statistics aren't going to change the need. I want to share that half the people I'm speaking to were actually made redundant a few months before COVID-19. So redundancies are always happening. We can't ignore that the volume has clearly changed, but if you have been made redundant, there are strategies that I and Sandy teach that will really help you to stand out that we're going to share today. And in my experience, not a lot of people are using these strategies. And also people are feeling a bit stuck and a bit fearful and aren't taking action. So if you show up and take action, you will get noticed. The other thing I wanted to share was about the hidden job market. So the statistic here is that approximately 50 to 65% less jobs are being advertised, but there are jobs that aren't being advertised. Typically 80% of jobs aren't being advertised. So for example, 3 of my clients had interviews in the last week because they were very clear on what they wanted and also the value that they could offer. So use what I recommend is to use the Work 180 platform. There are jobs being advertised, so definitely pay attention to that. But I also recommend you spend a lot of your time, potentially 70 to 80% of your time, connecting with your network or expanding your network. And I believe later on we'll be sharing some tips about how to do that.
Yeah, we will indeed. Thanks, Nikki. Sandy, you've had some really senior corporate HR experience before focusing on career transition. What are you seeing with your clients right now around some of the common fears, challenges, and opportunities that they're facing?
Look, thanks, Sam. I think, as Nikki mentioned, the circumstances now are completely unique in terms of the number of job seekers, and I think there's sort of comfort in that a little bit because we're all in it together, as they say, and there's a lot of people looking for work. But as Nikki mentioned, you just need one role, and it's being able to find that role. And so we are seeing a lot of anxiety, a lot of people feeling quite upset and concerned that, I'm never going to find a job. And, the competition just keeps getting harder and harder because there's more and more people in the job market, as we hear each day about more redundancies happening in organizations. So, look, I think we need to be really upfront and honest about that. It is a tough time, but that doesn't mean there aren't jobs out there. There's a real shift going on right now where jobs are disappearing, but they're also being created, and higher volumes of jobs in some areas where there weren't jobs 3 months ago. So it's really about being able to shift and refocus your skill sets and see how you can take your strengths and apply them in a different context and think about those transferable skills. And maybe right now it's not about getting your dream job or your exact next career move. Maybe it's just about getting a job that's going to get you through this strange and wonderful time we're in, and then you can get back on track later, or it might actually lead you on a new track that might be quite interesting. So I think it's trying to see the opportunity in the crisis right now.
Yeah, that's really great. And I think, a big message there is that if you are experiencing redundancy right now, or you have experienced it, you're not alone, but there are opportunities out there still.
Absolutely.
So, Nikki, I'm going to move back to you. I know that you have a real focus on strengths in your work. So I've actually worked with you in the past, and Nikki helped convince me to launch my own podcast called Women at Work, which now has over 80,000 downloads, and led me to Work 180, who asked me to launch their podcast, Equality Talks, and now I'm doing this for them as well. So, Nikki, can you talk a bit about how you use strengths testing to guide people on their next right step? And then for people who are actually here on the call, what's like a practical thing they could do to get started with that?
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. And how lucky am I to have been Sam's coach? Oh my goodness. So much fun. So I could talk about strengths for 3 days, but I'm going to try and talk about it for 3 minutes. So it's a really positive and confidence boosting strategy to actually get to know your strengths. So that's definitely one way to, calm the inner voice and calm your system right now. I want to tell you just a little bit about the theory, but then I'll get into a practical step for you. So studies show when you play to your strengths, you significantly boost your productivity, your resilience, your positive influence and creativity. And studies show that a business bottom line will actually improve when teams are playing to their strengths. So the other reason it's really incredibly valuable to do this right now is you want to be able to identify what are the problems that you can uniquely solve. And by getting to know your strengths, you can do that. When you understand what problems you can uniquely solve, you naturally become more magnetic and employers are more likely to want to speak to you. So your true strengths are tasks and abilities that come naturally to you and energize you. And we typically undervalue them because they come so naturally to us. So only 1 in 33 million people will have your strengths combination. So it is truly unique. So let's get to some practical steps. So first up, step 1, do you want to jot this down? Uncover what they are, and you can do an assessment. So I'm providing a free strengths guide that you can register for. Just follow my instructions and do the assessment, and you'll get a 5-page individualized report on how amazing your unique strengths are. Once you get your report, I recommend you get a highlighter. So step 2, get a highlighter out and highlight those sentences that really resonate with you and that you think sound potentially a bit impressive as well. And they will be talking about the things that you do naturally. And you'll start to notice, actually I solved that problem in that way. Maybe that is unique. Step 3, I want you to then think about what would the employer want to hear? Is there a pain point or a problem that they have that you could actually do something with and help them out with? And if I have time, I thought I'd give an example. Would that be helpful, Sam?
Yeah, please do, yeah.
Okay, so Alex Tullio was the head of retail banking, and she loved many aspects of the role, but she suspected there was something else for her out there. And she when I said, what do you think your strengths are? She said, well, I'm great with people, very analytical, and I'm good with change management, which is typically how we might describe our strengths. So once she did the strengths assessment, she could articulate her strengths in more detail. So things like, I have the strategic thinking strength. I can see 18 months ahead. I analyze the components quickly. I generate multiple solutions. Once I have a solution, I get things done, and I can reinvent if things change. If I know someone else can do a better job, I have zero issues asking them for help. I take the time to connect with people, help them to overcome their resistance to ideas and projects. I get genuine buy-in, I get momentum and results through people, and I seem to be able to get projects done that other people can't. So that's an example of what you might get from highlighting your report. That next step was, how can you articulate them in a way that would appeal to an employer? What would you say to an employer? So for Alex, to phrase it to appeal to their needs and pain points, she might say something like, I see a long-term vision and inspire others to make it happen. I can pivot and engage experts where needed. So I wonder, do you have a vision that isn't being met? Do you need a right-hand person to consolidate the vision and gain buy-in quickly for fast results? Can you hear the difference between the first and second example, I wonder?
Yeah, that's really good.
So really shaping your strengths in terms of the problems you can uniquely solve, and then creating a pitch that is connecting with potential pain points that organisation or hiring manager might have.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point about what is it that people want to hear, because I read a lot of bios in my work, and a lot of bios are totally meaningless. Like, I read it and it's like jargon and totally uncompelling, and it doesn't make me want to find out more about the person at all. And what what you're talking about is actually writing it in a way that makes employers go, oh, I'd like to know more about that, which, as you said, like, a lot of the words are actually on the strengths page, so you can just mash them together.
Yeah, and it is, and 9 times out of 10, I find people find it hard to articulate their strengths. So don't feel silly if you find it hard. It's really normal. Use a strengths assessment tool, get 5 pages of language to choose from, and it's a great shortcut, isn't it? Yeah.
Cool. So we'll move over to Sandy now. So when people are made redundant, they really need to evaluate their skills to help them figure out what transferable skills they have and how to package that all up, similar to what Nikki's saying. So can you talk about how you would guide someone through explaining what the transferable skills are and writing it in a compelling way?
Yeah, look, it's, I think it's particularly important right now because often if you're looking to transfer from one role in one industry into another role in the same industry, a lot of your skills are understood and the specific language of that industry is understood. But right now there's a lot of shifting, as I said, and people moving between industries. So it's really important that you can articulate your strengths, your unique attributes, your skills in a way that transfers, because you need to assume that the person in a different industry isn't going to understand the jargon and the metrics and the measures within your industry context. So it's being able to explain it, to a 5-year-old and making sure that they would actually understand what it is you do and what your strengths are. There's some different tools that you can use. Nikki's described one, and there's lots of other tools out there. And probably throughout your careers, maybe you've had some, poking and prodding with Myers-Briggs or, DISC profiles or other things. Go find those, dust those off, have a look at what's been said about you, have a look at your performance reviews from the past, talk to some of your colleagues that you worked with, say what are you going to miss about me not being there, other than just my fabulous personality, but what were the skills that I'll be remembered for? What did I really bring to the organization? Those are your skills, those are your strengths, those are the things that you want to be talking about with organizations going forward. So it's important to really look inwards but also look outwards, because other people will have a different view of you, and sometimes you have these blind spots where everyone thinks you're great at something and you're like, what? I'm good at that? I didn't know I was good at that. And that can be something that you can really highlight in the context of an interview, and saying, well, when they ask you those questions about what your strengths are, you could say, well, actually people are often telling me that I'm really detail oriented and they really value that skill set because I keep projects on track, or whatever it is that your skills are. So make sure you're reaching out looking at what feedback you can get. And then when you're putting it together, there's a lot of tricks right now about resumes and LinkedIn, and part of our offer, which we'll talk about, is we've got access to some wonderful webinars that you can attend on all those topics. But you need to be really clear. Your resume needs to go through an applicant tracking system, and if you don't know what that is, lots more to Google that. But it means, today we talk about with resumes, boring is the new sexy when it comes to resumes. Really plain, no photos, no hyperlinks, no charts, no graphs. So that means the words have to really, really stand out. And so it's making sure that you're using the right words in your resume that's actually going to, A, get through the applicant tracking system, but also connect in with the person when it does get to a human being that's looking at it. Connect in with that person, and the content of that is going to be meaningful and related to the role. So it's so important to think about how you customize. And again, it's coming back to how your strengths are, they're a feature, but how do they become a benefit to that organization? Because so what if you have this strength? What does that do for me? Put yourself in the mind of the person hiring and bringing you in. How are you going to add value to my business? We're under stress right now. We're hiring, but what are you going to do for me? And so it's always having that mindset when you're putting your resume together. Think about the so what, and think about how they're going to react to what you're saying.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so I like what you said there about how there's the sort of two steps, which is getting through that initial tracking system. So you have to have the language right so that the system doesn't cut you off before you get to someone, but then having it written in a way that when you do reach a person, that they also want to read that and
yeah,
talk about what you've written.
And they see the benefit in it for them.
Yeah. So Nikki, one of the things that I love that you teach with people is mini experiments, and you're really skilled at linking people's strengths with suggestions for mini experiments to test out what they might love. So can you give an example of what a mini experiment looks like and how people who are on this webinar might take that and try it at home?
Yeah, I would love to. I would. And I'm agreeing 100% with everything Sandy's saying. So it's so pleasurable to actually hear you speak on this topic too, Sandy. So mini experiments. Okay, so hands up if you're a high achiever, a bit of a perfectionist, get in your own way sometimes. Yeah, exactly. So mini experiments can be the antidote to perfectionism, to self-sabotage, to procrastination. So mini experiments, the idea is that you test out an idea in a bite-sized chunk, and you act like a scientist. And I encourage my clients to look for evidence as to whether they should do more or less of something, or how they can improve something. So there's literally no fail. If you're a scientist, you're collecting data and evidence, aren't you? There are 3 levels to mini experiments, and I'm going to focus on the first level today because that's the starting point. The first level is 10 minutes to 1 hour increments of connecting with an idea or a concept. And the idea is that you build clarity and confidence by doing this. So for job seeking, I recommend that you mini experiment with coffee catch-ups or Zoom catch-ups right now. So, I'm sure you've all heard about how important it is to connect with your network, and that can be overwhelming at times. So let's simplify it. We're thinking about might be one coffee catch-up a week. You want to get in front of people and view it as a mini experiment, so you don't have to perfect it in your first one, and you will take action more quickly. The other tip is to start with someone you really know well. We call them hot contacts. Make it easeful. Start with someone who really wants to talk to you, who will gladly carve out the time. Ask for 15 minutes, and people tend to stay on for longer. And then make it all about them, and at the end ask them for a connection to someone in your preferred organisation or industry. If we were to look at mini experiments for changing a job sector, then that first tier of your mini experiment might be to research the sector or to talk to someone working in it, rather than jumping and straight away applying for a role, potentially not getting it and thinking, oh, that was a bad idea. Because I hear people come to me all the time that have done that. The other mini experiment I love to talk about is where you get to explore a new or radical idea. So a lot of people are coming to me talking about this period of time feeling like a crossroads for them. So I wonder, is there something that you've always wanted to try? Is there a whisper or perhaps a roar inside of you that you're not paying as much attention to as you could? So mini experiment up. So I'd love to use Sam as an example. So in terms of Sam's why was very much around empowering women in the workplace and getting more equality happening there. And then when we looked at Sam's strengths profile, it was one of the funniest experiences of my life, because I thought, I think that's what Oprah's profile would look like. Not only is she a chief storyteller, master MC, as you're witnessing, but she really needs a stage and needs a message to share from stage to feel really to feel like a true Sam, superwoman. So a podcast was a fantastic idea because it was a way she could create a platform, but do it from home and do it in bite-sized chunks. Now, Sam is one of the most dynamic, confident people I know, but she still had the usual trappings of questions like, who am I to do this? What would I talk about? Who would I interview? So just know that often when you consider a new or radical idea, you'll have that imposter syndrome pop up. But that's how you can use mini experiments. Make them as tiny as you need to take action. So Sam's first one that we designed was to sit across from a friend, or it could be on Zoom, and actually chat about your favourite topics. Make a note of the themes or questions you really enjoyed exploring. And again, be the scientist. Do I want to do more of this or less of this? You don't need to publish a podcast within a week of thinking of the idea. Make it really tiny and try and enjoy the process. You're more likely to get further with that idea, because the risk is if you don't do that, you will get caught up in overthinking it or second guessing yourself and dropping it too early, which would be a real shame.
Yeah.
So the power of mini experiments.
The power of mini experiments. I love it. Sandy, we know that mentors and networks are really important in job hunting. Nikki talked earlier about the hidden job market and the percentage of jobs that are found via connections. So can you offer some concrete steps that people might take to identify and tap into their network right now, and also how to approach that in the best way, given that a lot of people do have increased pressures on them right now?
Yeah, look, I totally agree. The network is king in terms of job opportunities, and particularly now, I think there's sort of this general sympathy towards job seekers, and I think there's a kindness out there where if somebody's in a job, they feel grateful, but they also feel a little bit like if they can help other people, perhaps more so than in normal times, they'll make those efforts. So while people are busy, I think there's also an openness and a willingness to help. Asking someone a favor is often, if you turn it around, is a good thing for them, because it gives them an opportunity to feel good and to do something and to give back. And that's a really lovely thing for someone to do, and it can, really make their day. So I think if you view it that way, rather than, I'm bothering them, I'm wasting their time, that kind of mindset, it's a very different experience. In terms of the network, often people immediately think about their immediate network. So their close friends and their family, that inner circle. That can be a little problematic, because sometimes if your best friend knows someone and they're going to introduce you to that person, they're going to continue hopefully being your best friend. And if you have an interview with that person and then it doesn't work out, and then it becomes a little bit icky, and it can sort of make the relationship complicated. So you have to actually kind of step one ring out from your inner circle of friends to kind of their contacts. So if they introduce you to someone and it doesn't go so well, so what? You probably don't have to see each other again. It's not like you're going to be having Christmas dinner with these people. So think about your family and your close network, but think about who they know and go out from those rings of influence from there. When you contact people, be respectful of people's time, be prepared. So do your research, look them up on LinkedIn, understand who they are, who they know, check their connections, check what they're doing in terms of their role, look at their career and how they've advanced, have some meaningful questions. Don't go in asking them for a job. Whatever you do, don't ask them for a job. Say, I'm interested in your industry. I'm interested in your career path. I'd like to explore how you've progressed in your career. I'd like to understand how you switched from retail to finance. How did you make that transition? Ask meaningful questions and get in a dialogue with them. Have a goal at the end of that two goals really. One is to get them to refer you to two more people in their network, and most people are quite willing to say, hey, I know who you need to talk to, let me put you in touch with this person. Make sure you follow up on those. And the other thing is, in the conversation, make sure you find one way that you can give back to that person, and it might be nothing to do with work. It might be a restaurant that you could recommend, or a play group for their kids that wants to go to, or something. But listen for what's important in their life and find a way to give back. And what that does is it makes more of a reciprocity in the relationship, and it puts you on equal footing. But it also means that they have understood that you've valued their time and you've tried to give back to them. And that's a really important way to build a healthy network, and not just a network for today. The job market's going to be volatile. Even if you get into a job, you might want to value and use that network and extend it. So a network is something you need to be nurturing all the time. People can be a little suspicious if the only time you ever contact them is when you're looking for work. It can seem a little contrived. So really think about growing and enhancing your network all through your career, and you will find that it will pay dividends time and time again, but you need to put into it as well as get back.
I love what you just said about giving back in a slightly alternative way, like potentially restaurant recommendation or whatever, because I've heard that before, the idea of like you meet with someone, you have coffee with them, that bit I'm fine with, and then you give back. And I've struggled before sometimes to think about what I have of value to give to that person that's useful. But actually what you're saying is you could follow up with an email saying, hey, you mentioned that, here's a restaurant that I really loved, and that's the giving back in that scenario. That's
Exactly.
a big thing.
Exactly. Or you were looking for, somewhere for your son to play soccer. This team's a great team, whatever. But it's listening and asking the right questions about what's going on in their world, not just taking and, thinking about yourself.
Yeah, it's very clever. Nikki, if we can come back to you. So you talk about helping people create work with more freedom and flexibility. And in some ways that comes down to working for the right employer. So how do people identify who the right employer is, and how to approach them given what feels like this increased uncertainty in the market right now?
Such a good question. And so I guess the first thing to talk about is the freedom and flexibility. I think there's a real opportunity now to potentially be, negotiating a part-time job or reduced hours or working from home and things like that. So I really encourage people not to be afraid of having those conversations, because potentially employers are looking at creative ways of reducing their payroll, but still having enough people to solve the problems that they need to solve. So I think I was talking to a client, and she got her dream job and she's still in it and she's lucky. And she said, look, it's an events role. I'm always expected to be in the office, but I've been working one day a week from home. I think I'll ask to keep that going. And it's like, well, you've proven you can do 5 days a week from home. So what might that look like? Do you want to start at 4 and negotiate down to 3, for example? But even, I think there is more opportunity to have those conversations. In terms of finding out you need to research who these people are. So clearly Work 180 do an amazing job to, filter fantastic employers. I also recommend during your coffee catch-ups, that's also the kind of information you can be collecting, can't you? What's the culture like here? What do you love most about the culture here? What does flexible work practices mean to the company, and what is it like in reality? Things like that. And then don't underestimate, I guess, the coffee catch-up pathway that you can design. I agree 100% with what Sandy said, and said it so beautifully. What if you picked the top 5 organizations you wanted to work for? And what if you mind mapped, and put thought bubbles in between you and the organization, and actually mapped out what's that first connection and who might they connect you to? Because actually between 6 degrees of separation, you'll get there. The other thing to keep in mind is that enough on the dream organisation?
Yeah.
I wanted just to add 2 points to Sandy's points about coffee catch-ups. The first one is, really make it all about the other person, which is what Sandy's saying. Maybe think of the 80-20 rule. If you do like to talk, maybe think about listening for 80% of the time and only talking for a bit of it. The other thing to mention is a lot of a lot of people come to me saying that someone has told them they need to connect with 4 to 5 people a week. Now, if you're an extrovert, you'll probably get excited about that and think, hell yeah, I'm going to talk to 5 people every week. If you're like me and you're essentially an introvert because you get energy from being by yourself, that might make you want to crawl into bed and never come out. So in terms of the frequency, quality over quantity, and so potentially 1 person a week would be amazing, because you probably haven't been connecting with many people at all. So that would be 100% improvement. So even a 1 week, 1 a fortnight is amazing. So I just wanted to put that in there as well.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, like working to who you actually are. And then I liked what you said about there's something around identifying what freedom and flexibility means for you. Because like I'm a single mother, and I just can't have a job that I need to be there till 7 o'clock at night. And so sometimes when I'm talking to people who are in careers that they love, and they're like, it's really dynamic and exciting, and I'm here till 8 p.m. and I'm like, that's not going to work for me. And so actually being clear on what it is you are willing to put in and what you want to get back and all that kind of stuff is important too. So sorry,
could I add just one thing, which is, work 180, an entrepreneurial employer is going to be also potentially more forward thinking about that as well. Yeah.
Flexible.
Yeah, exactly. So Sandy, if I can come back to you and ask, what do you think are 1 or 2 best next steps for someone who's searching for a job or trying to move on from redundancy right now?
You've got to think about what your LinkedIn profile says. Take advantage of your title space. That's where the algorithm searches. What words do you have in there? Is it just your old job title, or is it the aspirational job you want to do? What other words of descriptions and strengths have you put in there? Have you got references on LinkedIn? Have you joined relevant industry groups? And are you contributing to the discussions on those industry groups? Have you connected with all those people you're having coffees with, but also other colleagues, people on LinkedIn in a meaningful way, not, hey, I'm looking for a job, can you help me? But, meaningful context. Right now, interviews are happening like this. They're happening online. Even I was speaking with a recruiter yesterday in the call center space. They're doing assessment centers online. So group multiple people interviewing via Zoom online, where they're assessing you with a whole bunch of other candidates. So the last thing I would say is practice that, but get really comfortable being in an online environment, because that's how job search and interviews are happening.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks. So we've got like a lot of practical tips from Nikki and Sandy. I'd like to open up to questions from people who are here with us. So if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box. We'll unmute you. The Nat, who's behind the Work 180 webinar name there, will unmute you. So just give people a second to type questions in. While people are thinking about their questions, what I might do is, Sandy, I'll ask you to explain to everybody what your kind of offer is for people. That this, just so everybody knows, this will also go out in the wrap-up email, so you'll get all the links and stuff, but Sandy can just talk about it for a couple of minutes. If you have questions, please type them into the chat box now too.
Fantastic. Yeah, so as Samantha mentioned, Career Money Life is a platform for career transition, and there's an extensive range of tools, job search tools, advice, content, everything you can ask for in terms of your job search. And we've got a special offer because we're really just trying to help people. So we're making the platform available to people at no cost. And so any of you that would like to have access to the platform can send us an email at contact@careermoneylife.com for no cost. And we've also put a special package together where you can have 2 coaching sessions with our experienced career coaches and access to the webinars I mentioned. So we have 5 different webinars that run daily on LinkedIn, on details on writing your resume, on the job search and networking, and on upskilling, which is something we haven't talked about today. And I would say that's another thing. If you've got time on your hands, jump on and do as many online courses and upskill as you can right now. So that's all available for $300 as a special COVID-19 package for people on the site. And again, you can access that through Career Money Life. So please let me know if you're interested. It's amazing value, and we'll give you a lot more detail in each of these areas that we've talked about. And you can access those webinars later, as well as all the content. There's resume templates and checklists and tools to practice interviewing.
Amazing, thank you. So it's like really rich content. And yes, the link will be provided in the wrap-up email that everybody who's on the call will receive. So you don't have to worry about remembering a link now. We do have one question, which is, what's the best way to describe your role if you're no longer in that role? So Sandy, do you have a thought on that?
So in terms of, so you can say in terms of that you're looking for new opportunities, is one way of saying it. In terms of actually your title that you put, what we'd often encourage you, not to sort of in a completely made up way, but in a slightly aspirational way, you can actually put the title of the job you're applying for, because if they look at your resume and you're applying for X job and you not say you're doing that, then there's sort of this disconnect. So you can say that's what you want to be. Now you need to obviously have, you can't put brain surgeon if you haven't been to med school kind of thing, but so you can put that job title in there and then sort of explain how you meet those criteria of that role. In terms of things like LinkedIn, people put #open to new opportunities as a field. Always refer to it that way. Don't say I'm unemployed or I'm out of work or those kind of negative things, particularly if you're talking with recruiters or others. Say I'm looking for my next opportunity. I'm open to new opportunities is a more positive way. But yeah, you can describe your previous role as your previous role, but what you're looking for, you can describe in a way that's not reflecting your last role, because often you're looking for a change.
That is such a clever idea, putting the job title that you're going for as your job title. I've never heard that before. That's a very clever idea. Nikki, there are some more questions coming in, but can you tell us what your offer is for everybody, and then we'll go back to some of the other questions.
Sure, I'm going to pop it in here so I know what I'm talking about, if that's okay. So,
yes.
I've got some individualized resources that you can that are free. So just text me your email address if you want me to send them out to you, or use the link. So this is the Strengths Guide with step-by-step instructions, and there's a webinar which is the equivalent of a one-to-one coaching session with me in that. I also run 2 webinars each month. One is around your dream job and the other one is around your next role advantage. And again, it's a workshop, so we'll workshop elements with you. Also, I do offer a free strategy call. So don't feel funny about booking into that. Book into that. Sandy and I genuinely want to help you. So that all of those links, all of those guides and resources are through the link, or you can just text me your email address if you just want to get it done, and I'll send everything to you.
So Nikki's put those details in the chat box, and also you'll get the links in the wrap-up email as well. So Nikki, another question. How do you tell yourself it's okay to drop your wage for a job that you're interested in without feeling less valued because of that wage reduction?
Can I read that one? Is that?
Yep, if you scroll up a little bit, how do you tell yourself it's okay? Got it?
Whoa, that's got layers to it, hasn't it, Sandy?
I've
got a tip. I'll jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, I think by coining a job as your bridge job, I think would help you with that. So a bridge job is a job that takes you from where you are to where you want to go. Now with a bridge job, we are going to be a bit flexible as to, is it an absolute perfect fit to my strengths and, my why, my purpose? Is it, not the absolute fit to my salary desires and things like that. I find that really changes people's mindset in terms of, that bridge job serves a purpose. It doesn't have to be perfect. We do want it to be at least neutral or positive in terms of how it impacts, your mood and well-being and everything like that. But I'd say, seeing it as a finite proposition would help. But I'm guessing Sandy's got a few more ideas there too.
Yeah, part of it is just telling yourself that you're still a competent, valuable person, and you still have all the skills and experience, and this is a conscious choice you're making, and maybe it's for now but not forever, and that's okay. And I really like your idea, Nikki, of it being a bridge, but it also depends on what that role is. If that role is doing something that's much more meaningful to you, what are your measures? Is it purely financial? Because if you're in a role that's aligned to your values, or you're giving back, or you're helping others, there's other ways of being rewarded than purely the financial side of things. Also, being in any work is usually better than not being in work in terms of your mental health, your well-being. So again, even if you see this as something that's on a pathway taking you to somewhere else, that's okay. And, right now I think having gratitude about having any job is another way of looking at it. We've been working with Virgin and dealing with pilots, and we had pilots that were taking jobs, stacking shelves at Coles with gratitude and saying, I'm happy to have that job because I'm working. So I think right now any job's a good job.
Another question here, which I'll just answer quickly. So we've got how to manage mental health and stress during this time that you have been made redundant. We actually did a webinar on managing mental health. It wasn't specifically related to redundancy, but it was very focused on the pandemic and all the issues that are coming up because of that, and increased pressure, one of which could be redundancy. So that will be up as there'll be a summary on our blog within the next week. So please check back there and you can find that information there. I have another question, which is, how should you talk about a negative experience with a previous direct manager? Who would like to jump into that?
Can you talk about perhaps what you learned from that? Was there a silver lining, or is there something you learned? Is there something you would have done differently? Is there a way that you can demonstrate you taking on some responsibility in that, whatever happened, would be my top tips.
Yeah, there's when you're doing interviews and also in your resume, there's a little framework called CAR. So it's the context, the action, the result, and we like to add the little L on the end, so Carl, which is the learning. So if this is coming up as an example of tell me about a time in a behavioral event interview when you've had a difficult manager, go in really prepared and think about that. What was the context? What was the actions that I did? How did I maybe contribute? What was the result? How did we resolve this? And what did I learn from that? And what will I take forward? So, don't get into whinging. Don't get into blaming. Don't get into eye rolling or any negative behaviors about that manager, no matter how bad they were. Don't get into the sort of, well, let me take you into my confidence and tell you how bad it really was. You're my friend now in the interview. None of that. Keep it super professional, super, just reflecting on what happened and why, and, being sensitive to the other person. You never know who that person knows. So be very careful.
Yeah. So we have gone a little bit over time. So I'm going to do just one more question and then I think we need to wrap up. So the final question we'll do is, how do you enable people, like employers, etc., to see past unusual or unique experiences on your resume and see your potential? So how do you avoid people pigeonholing you? And how do you grow your own confidence to see that potential in yourself?
If I could, I've just had an example of that yesterday that was quite relevant. So I mentioned about Qantas. Sorry about Virgin. Ooh, big mistake. Virgin. I'll be fired. Virgin, and we've been pilots. If you can think of a job that's more kind of linear, they start when they're like 15, and all they want to do is be a pilot. And so working with some of these pilots, just yesterday we had one email us that had just got a new job as a project manager for a health fund, for a health business. And, that was completely off their radar, no pun intended, in terms of the kinds of role. And what had happened is the pilot had taken the opportunity to upskill. So he'd done some online project management courses, but we'd also really worked with him around his strengths. And he had really strong strength in terms of communication skills, management skills, and it was understanding that being a pilot isn't just flying a plane, it's managing risk, it's managing complexity, it's managing a highly regulated work environment, it's managing, high levels of logistics and time and all sorts of other skills that he hadn't seen were really part of his job. And so by being able to present in an interview and talk about those things as skills and competencies and acknowledge that I'm not actually that well skilled at project management, but I've taken these courses and I've used my time while I've been off to upskill and reskill. And they said, that's okay. We can teach you the skills of project management, but it's the will piece. So it's the attitude and the mindset and wanting to be innovative and say, I'm going to try something different and I'm going to try and get myself skilled up here. And he got the job, and he was just over the moon that he got this job. So I think if in that circumstance where you would never imagine a pilot being a project manager, 3 months out from being stood down, I think it proves that anyone can make those kind of transitions, and it's all coming back to your unique strengths, but also your attitude and putting in the effort to look at how you can best prepare yourself.
I'd agree with Sandy. It is all about your unique strengths. And so, uncover what they are, but also if you're not where you want to be, partner up with someone. Sandy and I are offering free resources. Like, you don't have to do this on your own, I think would be the other key message.
Exactly.
If you can boost your own confidence, that's awesome. If not, talk to one of us. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much to both of you. And thank you everyone for joining us. I'm sorry we can't take any more questions because we've just gone a tiny bit over time. We need to wrap up. But really hope this was useful. From here, you'll be receiving an email with links to everything that Sandy and Nikki just talked about, their offers, and there'll also be a little feedback form because we really want these webinars to be as helpful as possible. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us, and Nikki and Sandy, that was really amazing, really practical and helpful, and I thought it was really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samantha, and best of luck, everyone. Hang in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Nat. And absolutely, best of luck. Remember that you are employable. You really are. If you have initiative, get things done, you're so employable. Remember, actually, when people are hiring, they find it's hard to find good staff as well. So remember that as well. Good luck.